So something was brought to my attention last night, and I'm so glad that this happened because it made me realize that while I've been talking about low effort family systems, I never really talked about what those actually are. And it dawned on me that the only reason I know about what they are is because I've studied narcissistic abuse at length. And so if that's not in your experience, why would you know what that means? And if I didn't know what it meant and I had just heard it, I would probably think that meant like low affection, non-demonstrative, not necessarily highly abusive. But I'm so glad that this happened because I want to make it clear that we really should be talking about covert abuse. Our society has been taught that abuse looks like hitting, sexual abuse, violence, maybe crashing another person's car, stealing their money, very overt ways of behaving, swearing, yelling. But covert abuse is happening all around us, but it takes place in the unseen. So if you can imagine, people who commit covert abuse, those that they hate the most are people like me, mystics that can easily see the unseen. And they are counting on no one knowing what's going on. So I can only imagine when, in my mid 30s, when I exposed someone for being abusive towards me for many decades, I know that they had no idea that I even was witnessing a lot of these things. So covert or low effort family systems, they will be doing things a lot more like gaslighting, denying your reality, silent treatment. Triangulation is huge, praising a sibling in front of you, another sibling, to make sure you feel worthless. It's very, very abusive. And because our society doesn't recognize this kind of abuse, many people end up committing suicide that experience covert abuse because they have no one to turn to. And I'm so grateful that I've studied this for so long, and there are other people like me, and we are so clear about how important it is that we get these words out. If you have a child in school right now, they have classmates that are right now wishing that they were experiencing overt abuse so they could get support. And if you're going, well, why wouldn't they just wish that they didn't have any abuse at all? I can tell you it's because when you're experiencing covert abuse, you're being taught that you're worthless and that you deserve that. So I know as a child, when I was wishing in some of the ways that I was getting physically abused, it never dawned on me to think, I don't deserve any of this. I didn't know that until my 30s. And I can absolutely appreciate how difficult it must be to acknowledge that you do harmful behaviors because that's all you've ever seen and that's all you know. And that's why I'm so impressed with my mom. The fact that she's in her 70s and just starting to touch on some of these things, it's absolutely incredible. And then she can see, now that she's moved out of certain behaviors, looking back, she can see, her siblings that are still displaying these behaviors, just how harmful it is. But I just really wanted to make clear, if you were watching my videos, I posted one a couple days ago about low effort family systems. If you think that I was talking about people that just lack demonstrative behavior, showing affection, and if you're someone like that and you think I'm calling you toxic, I need you to know that's not the case. I'm talking about very harmful abuse, just taking place in the unseen. And for example, like for me, I felt, and I was aware of all these things when I was a child, but I thought that I deserved them. So I would use my awareness to get safe. And even in adulthood, in 2019, I went to Colombia, and I remember sitting in the place that I rented, the Airbnb, and feeling my lifelong bullies' rage course through my body. And I could feel that they were very mad. They found out I was traveling and having fun. So I immediately thought, okay, next time don't mention it until you get back from your trip. That's how I used to use my awareness. Now, I'll just expose you. So I understand why emotionally abusive, covert narcissistic, sociopathic, I can understand why they would hate people like me. I totally get it, because you're relying on operating in the unseen, and I'm just going to keep being a whistleblower and exposing. So I understand why people like that would not ever want to be around me. I don't mind. So now, like on Mother's Day, I felt this same person's rage course through my body. I was brushing my teeth. I'm like, whoa. And I went and I said, Mom, just so you know, your sibling is like fueled with rage right now. She said, "Oh, they just texted me." I'm like, just be careful, you know? And then about a month ago, I felt through my body and all around me that this person is heavily obsessed with when my mom will die and heavily obsessing about my mom's will. And I said, "Hey, just a heads up, just be careful. I'm not involved with these people at all anymore, but I can still feel them." And, I told my mom, "Just be careful. Your sibling is heavily obsessing about your death and your will." And my mom, I think she still like takes my intuition with a grain of salt. But then within a week, this person twice now has drunk texted my mom about her will and when she'll eventually die. My mom just shivers and doesn't respond. I'm like, you can understand now. She's like, "Damn, Taylor." She more and more trusts that when I bring something to attention, that she can trust it because I can feel it. And 2 times I've seen a vision of this person standing over my mom's casket one day and going, and I'm like, holy shit. Like, and if this person ever wanted to heal, they would be able to come off of this path. But I know because that probably won't happen, this is going to happen at some point. And I'm just like, I just focus on better things. This is crazy. But anyways, I just really wanted to make sure that I'm clear about what low effort family systems are talking about: covert forms of abuse, neglect, severe neglect, dismissiveness, defensiveness, triangulation, gaslighting is huge. And so we know that many people will end up committing suicide because of this kind of abuse, because there's no support for it. And as we know, there's little support for even overt abuse. There's a documentary right now on Netflix about women getting arrested for their own rapes and going to authorities about getting raped. Then they were arrested. So I do understand now. Of course, it's not a perfect support system for these people either. And of course, now I know I never deserve to be abused in any way. It's just fascinating. And it just allows me to know that there are definitely kids around now thinking they deserve the abuse and are wishing that they were being beaten or raped. I'm not kidding. This is absolutely insane, but it exists. I can't tell you how many times this went through my mind. I wish that I had just been jumped in an alley and that's what I was healing from. But this is going to be consistent. The abuse I'm dealing with will happen all the time. And I knew that, and especially if you're a sensitive person, you're feeling that rejection. It's so astounding. When I got old enough to smoke cigarettes, I used to burn my inner ankles with lit cigarettes and think that I was in honor of my elders because I was so bad on this planet. I shouldn't exist. So now when I see a person, when I have leaned over to kids, like a teenager, strangers, when I see someone covertly abusing them and I'm like, "Hey, this has nothing to do with you, just so you know. That person actually thinks really highly of you. They're trying to take you down a few pegs because you make them feel small." And they're like, "Who is this girl?" But you can tell they're like, "Wait, what?" I would have given anything as a child for one person to lean in and say, "None of this is your fault." I didn't know that until almost 30 years old. So I know how important, now that I've gone through all this, I wouldn't wish it to go through it again. But now that I've experienced it, I'm grateful that I have it because I can use this to help other people. And I talk to people on different platforms that have gone through covert narcissistic abuse as well. And many of them say, "I was wishing that I could just be abused overtly so I could get support." We need this out of here. We need this off the planet, among other things. But I know that this is where I can really come in and help. So I'm going to continue to do that. And I'm so glad that this was brought to my attention. And if you are someone who, lacks demonstrative behavior and you or your parents did and you're changing that, that's amazing for your kids to be able to see love, not even just energetically, but physically see it in their home. That's an amazing shift. So I don't want to downplay that. I just want to make it clear that's not the things that I had been talking about, but that it's definitely included in low effort family systems. Absolutely. But also, when you Google low effort family systems, you can quickly see that it is as toxic as domestic violent family, so I just think of it as straight across, just overt and covert, equally as toxic, but we don't know that. The average person doesn't know that. And I know because when I would talk about abuse, they're like, "Were you hit? Were you raped?" So then I don't understand. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm grateful to be able to be a voice, especially for the youth when it comes to this stuff. And I'm going to randomly be talking about this for the rest of my life. Yeah, I'm grateful. And for the next part of this video, there's something that I find so important that we also start talking about that is very new, brought into my awareness only a few weeks ago, in Zach Alexander's Way Showers container. Highly recommend, by the way. We were talking about how a lot of us have gone through things that I've just discussed, and it ends up making us kind of break off energetically, mentally from our whole lineage and family line because of like a few bad apples or one. And I'm so glad this was brought into my awareness that I would really like to do one of those things where you send in a sample of your blood and get to know your ethnicity, where you're from, where your ancestors are from. And I would love to like go and visit these places and really hold reverence and honor for the things that people went through in my family line. And I want to become more and more aware that I can hold this beautiful honor and gratitude for the people that came before me without just focusing on someone that hurt me. And even that someone that hurt me, I don't have any bad energy towards them. Like, I'm not sending them love all the time, but I hope that they heal. And I've told this person, I hope that you win the lottery. I hope something happens that you can come out of what is making you do the things you do. I don't wish harm on anybody, you know? But I think it's so beautiful for us to be able to realize that this abuse and estrangement often cuts us off from our entire lineage, and we don't ever have to do that. And I'm really looking forward to getting deeply in touch with the people that came before me, visiting places and learning a lot. So I'm like really excited about that. But yeah, thank you for listening, and I'll be back soon, guys. Love you.